I don't know why, but old school video games or vintage video games have been getting scalped like crazy. So I was on the internet, right? I was like, I would love to buy a PlayStation 2 someday. So I start searching and looking for maybe a potential console. And I'm like, okay, let's look at some of the video games that they have, right? I was like, what are some video games that I would love to purchase in the future if I could? I look, right? And I see a copy of Silent Hill for $1,000. Now, mind you, I'm not like a Silent Hill kind of guy. I'm more of a Dead Space guy. I love action horror instead. But I was curious. I was like, this game has so much love, and I see that it's going for $1,000. What? $1,000 for a game that came out before I was even born? As a matter of fact, when did this Silent Hill came out? I know for like PlayStation 2, yeah, it definitely came out before I was born. That game is so expensive. And then I look at Simpsons Home Run, Simpsons Hit Home Run. I don't know what it's called, right? But that game is $300 for the PlayStation 2, and it gets even worse. The remaster, it gets even worse, right? I'm looking for some games for the PlayStation 3. Right? I was like, you know what? Let me go over to PlayStation 3. There are still some games that I want for my PS3. Spider-Man Webs of Shadows is $200. Every Spider-Man game that is ever released from Activision on the PlayStation 3 is $150. Maximum of $300 or even more of dollars. You're telling me that in order to buy a video game from my childhood, I have to spend a week worth of groceries money? Yes, $100, unfortunately, is a week worth of groceries. If you can make it a month, then make it a month. But $100, it's still a lot of money. It's still a lot of money, and you want me to spend this much for a video game that came out when I was just a baby. 2008. Listen, I was born in 2006. Okay, I was born in 2006. But I was still young enough to experience the PlayStation 3. Okay, so I remember playing some of these games. But goodness gracious, $200. So you know what I did instead? I modded my console. I put this thing called a hen mod. You can search it up because my console isn't able to take custom firmware. But I put a thing called a hen mod. Right? Some of you don't need a hen mod, but I did, right? I downloaded this software which will allow me to play every game that was available. And with a USB stick and a laptop, I was able to mod my console, install whatever game I wanted for the PlayStation 3, and go have at it. And because of that, I saved a lot of money. I saved myself from spending $200 on a Spider-Man video game. On multiple games. Unfortunately, I did this mod a little late. When I did this mod, I ended up buying physical copies of Transformer video games. And the biggest regret I ever made was purchasing 2 copies of No. It was 2 copies of Transformer video games. One copy was Fall Cybertron. The other was War for Cybertron. Each one was damn near $50 to $60, I believe. One of them was like $50, the other one was like $60, which first of all was stupid of me. Because I found out that I was able to just download it off the internet and install it to my PlayStation 3 for free. For free. You're telling me that I wasted money on a PlayStation 3 that I could have easily hacked and downloaded the game for free. Oh my god. And the only reason why you can't even, whether these games are so expensive is because not only are they high in demand, but because these games are delisted due to licensing. Now look, I don't believe any game should be charged more money than what they're worth. I think it's ridiculous that people go out of their way and charge you so much money for a game that may or may not even be that good. Not to say that the Transformer games aren't good. Oh no, they're absolutely amazing. But damn, $200, $50, $60? When you could get them for free off of just modding your console with nothing but a USB stick? And you could do the same thing with Xbox 360. You can also do the exact same thing on PC. On PC, the Transformer games are free. Almost every video game from older generation of consoles are free, and these people are out here scalping these games. And the only reason they're allowed to get away with this, right, is because companies refuse to re-release these games. I understand licensing issues, but damn, there are some games that these companies are capable of releasing, but they refuse to do so. They find any excuse. Sony is one of those companies. Sony refuses to make a proper emulation system for PlayStation 3 video games, because PlayStation 3 video games are in fact capable of being played on the PlayStation 5. It's been proven by this one video. This guy, he played PlayStation 3 video games on a PS5 CPU. And it is possible. Sony just has to make a more stable emulation software, but they don't want to. They're too lazy. And mind you, Sony allowed you in the past to play video games from older consoles. The early version of the PlayStation 3, the fat model, would allow you to play PlayStation 2 video games. There were some overheating issues with the GPU, I believe, or the CPU, but that was easily solved, where they would replace it from a 90 millimeter, I think, to a 40 millimeter, and that fixed the issue permanently. Another solution was another thing they allowed you to do was on the PlayStation 1 you could play on the PlayStation 2 you could play PlayStation 1 video games. And the best part about this is that these consoles also allowed you to rip games from the internet. All you really had to do was rip a game and onto like any CD that was compatible with your console. You just easily play it. Nowadays, however, the issue that I have, right, is that these companies just refuse to re-release these games for modern titles, because not everybody is going to want to buy a PlayStation 2, a PlayStation 3, and a PlayStation whatnot, because the company is just too lazy to make an actual proper emulation software, or because the company that owns these games refused to re-release them for modern day console. Why would they do that when they can just remaster or remake the title? It's ridiculous. I'm not spending that much money for one video game just because it's a cult classic that people have high demand for. Another thing that I want to talk about, right, is how there are people who try to justify this by saying, oh, I don't want to emulate my games because it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel the same as just opening the case and unloading the disc. Like, buddy, let's be honest with ourselves. Why would you go so far to spend so much money? Look, if you want to do that, then go ahead and do that, right? But stop trying to justify people spending so much money on a copy of a game just because you want to open the case and have that authentic feel. At the end of the day, what's on the disc is data that you can still access on the internet while it's still here. Stop trying to justify this. Also, look, in the next video, I want to talk about another issue about how you don't own your games and how being a loyal customer means nothing. Because these defenders as well, they try to be the best loyal customers ever. Like, listen, man, you can't just get angry when they remake these video games or remaster them and then they don't release it the way it originally was, but then still talk about how you refuse to emulate your games. Let's be honest with ourselves, people. It's not worth being a loyal customer, okay? Just, you're better off emulating and jailbreaking these things. They don't want to release it for how it was, then play the game then just pirate the thing. You're not going to own it anyways if they just, like, remaster or remake the game for newer consoles. You won't own it. Anyways, thank you for watching. Give your thoughts on why vintage video games are so expensive. And you have a good day, okay?